This video is going to be all about mergers and acquisitions and culture. How you can merge culture or integrate culture whenever you're involved in any kind of M&A. Regardless of the type of culture that you have, regardless of your strategy or your company size, if there's an acquisition in your future or a merger, then this video is going to help you navigate that as two cultures collide. Oftentimes, M&A activity within organizations can create a culture clash, where two organizations find a lot of friction as they try and do business together for the first time. This video is all about how to overcome that culture clash and what you need to think about whether you're a leader or an employee going through a merger or an acquisition. Specifically, we're going to talk about the 3 phases of culture integration in any M&A activity. The number of mergers and acquisitions worldwide last year was 62,000. That was publicly disclosed mergers and acquisitions that attuned to a value of over $5 trillion. So there is a lot of activity, and you may be in an organization that is about to merge or get acquired or acquire another company. And if so, this video is all about how to integrate culture to make that as successful as possible. Now, according to multiple studies, 70 to 90% of all acquisitions are failures. And that often has to do with an inability to merge cultures. Financial integration can be done on spreadsheets, but culture is something that is a powerful motivator for either the failure or the success of mergers and acquisitions. I used to work with an organization that did a lot of M&A activity, and I once saw the list of things that they were checking off anytime they were interested in an acquisition. There was financial information, there was HR things to look at, there was product and sales and technology, and a list goes on and on and on, but what I did not see was culture. There was nothing in that list that took into account the way that the organization did business. Now, culture is the experiences we have which shapes our cultural beliefs. Those beliefs determine our actions and get us results. Now, I've been a part of an acquisition in the past. It was a technology company that was in startup mode, and it was acquired by a large global company. And that large global company had a very different culture than the startup that I was a part of. The startup was more flexible, was more agile, more able to make decisions quickly, was more flexible in the way that business was done, and more relaxed in their policies and procedures. Now, when this organization was acquired by a large technology company, the large technology company had a lot of processes in place, a lot of procedure that needed to be followed, approval matrices that needed to be followed, so many rules. And what that startup found was that the way that they had done things in the past no longer worked. And many people got frustrated with that. Many people felt like they wanted the innovative, agile environment that they had left, and they didn't want to be in what felt like a bureaucracy. But there were other people who embraced that change with a different mindset. Rather than thinking about everything they had lost in their previous culture, they focused on the things that they had gained. While there was more bureaucracy and there were more approvals and there was slower decision making in the larger organization, there was also a lot more opportunity. There were more job openings, more departments, more functions, more products, more countries where they could work. There was so much more opportunity for employees who felt like it was the right fit for them. But there really wasn't that much work done on culture fit. There wasn't work done on how that merger and acquisition could have been optimized based on the cultural beliefs that were being nurtured. If you have an M&A story that you'd like to share, specifically how it went when you started to integrate your cultures, we'd love to hear it. Put a comment below to share what worked or what didn't work in your M&A transformation. So there are 3 kinds of M&A cultural integrations, and we're going to talk about those 3 kinds now. And the first is assimilation. Assimilation is when one organization decides to assimilate completely into the new organization's culture. The example that I gave before was an example of assimilation. The smaller startup company was so far outnumbered by this large global technology company that as people dispersed into the company, the culture that once once was disappeared, and they assimilated into the larger organization's culture. That culture worked for so many of us. I stayed at that organization for many years after the acquisition, but there were others that didn't feel like they belonged anymore, and they left the organization in hopes of finding a culture that worked for them. The second kind of M&A cultural integration is correlation. Correlation happens when the two organizations stay largely independent. They share best practices before, during, and after the transaction, but usually those two organizations stay largely intact, and that means their cultures also stay intact. In fact, one of the benefits of the correlation type of culture integration is that both cultures sometimes get better. As they see what's working in the other organization, they use some of those tactics and they share other best practices. That can be one of the best ways of culture integration, is simply to maintain the integrity of what existed before the M&A activity and to continue on in getting better together. The third kind of culture integration in any M&A activity is co-creation. And this is one in which both organizations wipe the slate clean. They say what existed before will no longer exist today because we are creating a new combined organization. And the intentional work of crafting culture starts with the merged organizations, where leaders from both organizations get together and talk about that definition of culture that I shared at the beginning of the video. Culture is the experiences we create which shape our beliefs, and those beliefs determine our actions, and those actions get results. The M&A activity occurred because some goal is trying to be achieved. We start at the top of that pyramid, the goal of the results we're trying to achieve. Like I said, clarity of results alone can improve culture strength by 44%. So we start by figuring out, what results does this merged or acquired organization want to achieve together? Then we go down that pyramid and we ask the question, what behavior would our employees need to exhibit in order to achieve those results? We then determine what broadly held beliefs we would need to share in order to act according to those behaviors. And then finally, we determine what experiences will help form those beliefs. Leaders need to role model this activity, but all employees share responsibility in co-creating those experiences that will lead to those beliefs. That is a really unique way of combining cultures in any M&A activity, and I would argue it probably happens the least often. We have an ebook specifically about how you can be intentional about culture through your M&A, and if you're interested in downloading it, then you can get it at gift.culture.io or click on the link below in the description.